I don't know if you can trade Andre Dillard now, even though it would be probably a good time after he's been on the field and at least put together some decent tape uh, while the Eagles had the injury issues with Jordan Mailata and then the personal issue with Lane Johnson. In theory, you could spin him off for something at least relevant and certainly better than if you rewind to training camp when he looked like a total lost cause. But I don't know if you can do that now because you have to start thinking about, well, what's Lane Johnson moving forward as well? Because it's not only the personal issues.
Hour number 2 on kind of a mixed Monday here on Birds 365. Not post-Eagles Sunday action, post-Thursday action, which makes it a little bit different. Oh, by the way, other things happening around the Philadelphia Eagles, like the Friday trade of Zach Ertz, which John and I have already broken down for you. We'll continue to do so. And the return of Lane Johnson to the Eagles. Put out a missive on social media that he is rejoining the team, thanking everyone for understanding what he was dealing with off the field, depression and the like. He is coming back to play and back to practice and back to becoming a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. John, you've been around players for a long time in the locker room, got to know some of these guys personally, and different players react differently to things around them. Certainly, everyone's going to have a reaction to the Zach Ertz trade. You haven't really had a chance to talk to any of the players. You will get to do that coming up in the next week or two. And also Lane Johnson returning. Lane did take off a couple of weeks in the middle of the season. I'm not doubting for 1 second that he didn't need it. I'm sure that he did because Lane Johnson, if ever there's a guy that I would consider a warrior, he would be one of them on this Eagles organization over the last several years. But he needed some downtime now, and he missed a couple of games. And oh, by the way, the Eagles didn't fare all that well. They did win the game in Carolina, but they got beat in a couple of the games that Lane was out. How does that play in a locker room? Because players look at things differently than fans. Fans even look at things differently than the media. The only one I'm worried about now is the players. Are there anybody in that locker room that's going to cast a scant eye at Lane Johnson because he basically needed a break during the season? He's a veteran. He's a leader. He's a guy that guys look up to in the locker room. How's it going to play that Lane needed to take a break from playing from the Eagles this year?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different. Number one, you have to say that. So there's a lot of people in that locker room. So not everybody's a monolith. It's not going to be everybody. It is a little different with a veteran player like that, a leadership. This generation is different. I mean, let's be honest. If you're being honest, you go back a generation or certainly two, this would not have spun well, to be honest. It's a different world today. People are more accepting, certainly, of mental health. And we've been through it before with Brandon Brooks, who ironically is, Lane's best friend on the team. They play right next to each other. Uh, I do think people forget all the time. These guys aren't Madden players. They have personal lives, they have personal problems, they have personal issues. And then you add on to Lane's got a big personality. So you don't think of him as a guy who's depressed or a guy who has anxiety. He's one of the guys front and center, good, bad, indifferent. Scott Grayson just talked about that with Zach Ertz in the locker room. Lane was one of those guys as well. Lane will talk after any, the worst loss possible. So he would not be the guy you would think from the outside looking in is struggling with depression and anxiety issues. And that's, what he's trying to do. You see with the statement trying to help other people as well. You're not alone. This a lot of people and the pandemic greatened this massively. I
Sure.
mean, you have people stuck in their houses, they can't see their family, their grandparents, they can't get married. People had to cancel weddings, on and on and on. You know, People talk about COVID-19, about the start. It's almost like football when you look at Jalen Hurts and say these are the numbers, and we talk, and we'll get back to football. But I want to say this real quick, and you say these are the numbers. How many did? How many people were affected by lockdowns and things of that nature, and just their mental health was just destroyed? It's one of those underreported stories they'll be talking about 20, 30, 100 years down the road when it continues to unfold. Look, you deal with and this is one of the most difficult parts of being a head coaching job. I always remember Bill Parcells because I thought it was great. He would give advice to his guys, his assistant coaches who became head coaches. One always stuck with me, and it was there's going to be 4 or 5 things that happen every day in professional football that you don't want to happen as a head coach. And if you can't deal with it right now, don't go for this job. Go get a different job. Don't be a coordinator, be an assistant coach. It is a tough gig to deal with. You wake up one morning, you think Lane Johnson's going to be your right tackle on a Sunday, and all of a sudden he's gone and he can't play the game. And it's just part of it. It's a difficult job. But you think of the person first, and that's what Nick Sirianni has said. His 5 core values. Number one is connecting, and I give this organization a lot of credit because they held the line on this. There was no whispers, there were no talk behind the scenes. Um, Deeply personal issue, and they respected his privacy and respected the person. And Lane Johnson's already done enough for this organization that he certainly deserved that.
And I guess the point I'm trying to make is just a little surprising. You made a really good speech there, JM, about COVID and getting through and dealing with it and the certain things that people deal with that we don't know about because it doesn't have an immediate impact but have a long range impact. We're on the other side now. We're not done with it. We're still in a pandemic state, but it's certainly much less than it was last year. And Lane Johnson made it through last year, and most of you
Well,
players
I
made it through
wasn't
last.
saying, I was just using that as an example. I think Lane's issues are more personal. They're not COVID related, but I'm just bringing it up from a mental health standpoint. Um, that was just an example, but from his standpoint, he's had been dealing with some personal issues, some family issues, um, and obviously it affected him. And as he mentioned in his statement, he's been that type of guy. You think about Lane Johnson, 6'6", 320 pounds. This powerful guy. He hit it. You didn't tell his family. You didn't tell his friends. You didn't tell him about depression and anxiety because he's supposed to be the big strong guy. Same thing with Brandon Brooks. He said that over and over again. Um, you know, you're on the air, Jody. I'm sure you've gotten some criticism from people. We deal with that kind of stuff all the time. It's not fun sometimes, but you accept it, you move on. Uh, some people have a more difficult time handling criticism than other people. Could be something as simple as that. Anxiety is a real thing, though. And when somebody sticks 50 microphones in your face, it can be overwhelming at times.
It's part of the gig. If you're going to be a media member, if you're going to be a starting offensive lineman, an all-pro offensive lineman, yeah, criticism is going to come your way. Expectations are going to come your way, and you might not live up to those expectations week in and week out, game in and game out. It's not easy. We're fairly compensated. He's tremendously compensated. So there's an upside to taking on this very tough task, but it's kind of expected of you. And I want to echo your sentiments about kudos to the Eagles that they let Lane Johnson deal with this the way that Lane Johnson felt he needed to deal with it. He took the time off that he needed. He made the statement that he did today via social media to explain why he was out up until this point in the way that he wanted to. Good for the Eagles for having their guys back and letting him deal with it the way that he deals with it. But now Eagle fans are going to want to know, is Lane Johnson coming back as Lane Johnson? Is he going to be able to play like the right tackle, the all-pro, arguably best right tackle in football at times during his career? I would certainly rate him as that level type player. Is he going to be able to play like this, or is this something we're going to see a change in his play?
Yeah, I mean, that's something you don't know. We're going to have to see how this affected him in season. We did talk a little bit just from a football perspective. I don't know if you can trade Andre Dillard now, even though it would be probably a good time after he's been on the field and at least put together some decent tape while the Eagles had the injury issues with Jordan Mailata and then the personal issue with Lane Johnson. In theory, you could spin him off for something at least relevant and certainly better than if you rewind to training camp when he looked like a total lost cause. But I don't know if you can do that now because you have to start thinking about, well, what's Lane Johnson moving forward as well? Because it's not only the personal issues, a lot of injury issues as well. That ankle is still swelling up on him when he plays. So you have to start thinking about life after Lane Johnson from a football perspective. And then you start thinking, all right, well, if Andre Dillard can play left tackle, Jordan can play right tackle. Maybe that's our long-term plan. I don't know if you can deal Andre Dillard now.
Yeah, I got no problem trading Andre Dillard. This is one where you and I separate. You still think Dillard's got some skills. I think he's a stone cold bust. I think anything that he has accomplished on tape over the last several weeks should be taken advantage of. This is one where I give you my blessing, Howie. I didn't love the Zach Ertz trade. It annoys me.
Well, you haven't seen, I will say this, Jody, you haven't seen LaRaven Clark play or Jack Driscoll play 16 games. You know, it is what it is. I hear what you're saying. I mean, if you want to take advantage of it and you've made that assessment, you should trade him. So if the Eagles have said, okay, this guy can't play, they should trade him.
Yes.
They should try to take advantage of it.
That's my evaluation. It might not be the same as Howie Roseman's. I know it's not the same as yours. I think the kid can't play. And I think the reason why he is still here, and this has been an ongoing criticism of Howie Roseman of mine, where a player is drafted is a player's evaluation is taken through that scope, more so here than any other football team I've ever followed. That they cling to the fact that they need to justify where someone was drafted more so than any other team I've ever dealt with before. And I think that's the case with Andre Dillard, that he's still being given chances because he was not only a first-round pick, he was a first-round pick they traded up for, and they are still trying to justify and defend that selection when I say it's absolutely time to cut ties and move on.
Well, I will say this, but one, I disagree. I think the Eagles are, I think every team does that. I think the Eagles are the same as every other team, number one. Number two, and they do it, but so does everybody else. So I always like to put the context of the rest of the league in as well. I don't think they're worse than the rest of the league.
I do.
Take me out of it, take Howie Roseman out of it, and we go and we always talk about Pro Football Focus, and it is what it is. There's some good, there's some bad, but there's 32 teams in this league. That means there's 64 starting tackles in this league. I'm just looking it up as we speak. They have Andre Dillard at number 24. Now,
tremendous. That means Howie Roseman should be able to get something for him. If that's the case, if you're telling me he's in the top half of the starting tackles, and he hasn't played every single game, so it's a
smaller sample size.
It's a small sample at 6 games. It's
and
an even smaller
lucky.
sample
I'm the first
because
to
he
say,
didn't play those 6 games.
And I'm the first to say no DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas, no Frank Clark against Kansas City. That enters into it as well. But when he's been out there, that's what Scott Grayson said. When he's been out there this time, he's been good enough to win with. He hasn't been the problem. But you have to add all that into it. And the fact that it is a smaller sample size. Can he continue to play at that level? Certainly the opposition's going to ramp up. He played very well against Brian Burns, did not play very well against Shaq Barrett. So already you see the kind of difference, but those are both good players. So there's some good, there's some bad. But I think it's unfair to say he's played poorly when he's been thrust into the job this time. I think he's been above average. And I think those PFF numbers who don't care about Howie Roseman, don't care about John McMullen, they're telling you the same thing.
Just let me ask you a quick question. Thrust into the job. That's how you just described Andre Dillard playing.
Well, this time he was thrust in it because of an injury and because of a personal problem to Lane Johnson.
Right.
So he wasn't supposed to play. That's all that means.
Okay. Because that's kind of his job, right? He shows up every day. He plays one position. We've already determined he can't play multiple positions. He plays one position. So he's going to play. He's going to play left tackle. Either he's going to sit or he's going to play. I have trouble understanding why it's difficult to be thrust into a position when you only have two options: sit and watch.
I'm always interested to see. I'm always interested to see what Jody what you latch onto. All I meant was he was thrust into action because of an injury and because of a personal problem to Lane. Nothing more than that.
Okay.
He's a backup. Yeah. If somebody sprains an ankle, you got to be ready to go. I was just merely stating he wasn't supposed to be playing. And by the way, he wasn't supposed to be playing because he lost his job to Jordan Mailata. All I'm trying to say is he wasn't supposed to be playing. He was back in there, and he was back in there playing at a pretty high level when he wasn't supposed to be playing. Now, the bad stuff is why he got to the point he wasn't supposed to be playing. That's all legitimate. But I'm saying when he came in, when he was forced to play because of other issues, he played better than most people expected. And I would probably put the Eagles in that category as well.
Yeah, I know every once in a while I'll get off on a semantical tangent. Being forced to play doesn't seem to that's not the way I would describe it. When your job is to play and you're not good enough to play, and then something happens that necessitates you're playing, you're supposed to be ready. You're not being forced to play. You play, and you're good enough or not. And he has played better than certainly I expected because I think the guy stinks. But if that's the case, Howie Roseman, pull a rabbit out of your hat. See what you can get for this guy, because if he's playing going forward, I don't think that bodes well for the Eagles' offensive line, because that means Mailata is on the right-hand side, and I think Mailata is the superior left tackle, and that's where he should be playing week in and week out. All right, he is John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald with the Birds 365 Mac and Mac guys. Come back. John, I do want to turn the conversation to the quarterback position again, because something dawned on me this weekend watching the entire NFL, which we were both allowed to do, except for you. You went to Lowe's. I stayed in front of my TV and watched football all day on Sunday. The Eagles have an issue, and it's not even an Eagle issue. It's a tangential Eagle issue at the quarterback position. I'll explain when we come back. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Mac and Mac guys on Birds 360.